Hey everybody, I'm Justin with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we're taking a closer look at and installing the PowerStop Z23 Evolution Sport pad, rotor, and caliper setup available for your 2009 to 2018 Ram 1500. Now, you should be checking out this setup for your Ram if you're looking for an affordable turnkey package to totally update both the front and rear brakes of your rig, improving your stopping power and your appearance in the process. So in breaking down the features of this kit, pun intended, the big takeaway will be the fact that you're replacing a majority of your Ram's components with brand new parts. Now, this kit in particular, the Z23, is going to be a little bit different from PowerStop's other kit on the site, the Z36, which is more of a heavy-duty truck and tow setup. Z23 that we have here, again, a little bit more friendly for the daily drivers out there who don't do a ton of towing or hauling, where again, that Z36 kit on the other hand, is gonna utilize a more aggressive pad, better suited for heavy duty use thanks to the carbon fiber that's baked in. But as a result, that other kit, the Z36, will produce a little bit more dust, a little bit more noise compared to the Z23 that we have here. Now, getting into the construction, the foundation of this kit will be the company's cross-drilled and slotted G3000 iron rotors, which, as you can see, have been finished off in a really sharp silver zinc coating, and that's just there to help resist any rust or corrosion on your non-friction surfaces. Now, the slotted and drilled design is designed to help keep braking surfaces clean, along with keeping things a bit cooler, and PowerStop claims that surface temps are dropped pretty significantly with this particular design, which should help reduce fade, especially when the system itself is working hard to haul down a heavy load. Now, the second part of the equation here, guys, will be the Z23 pad. Now, the Z23 specifically will utilize a 100% ceramic compound that will produce less dust, will be a bit quieter compared to that Z36 truck and tow we mentioned earlier. Now, the Z36, again, has that carbon fiber baked in. It's gonna be a bit more of an aggressive material, certainly will help with heating or keeping heat down and towing. Now, the flip side of that pad, again, said it once, I'll say it again, the Z36 will be a bit noisier, it's gonna be a bit dustier compared to the Z23 on the table today. Finally, guys, those pads are going to be loaded into PowerStop's remanufactured dual piston front, single piston rear calipers. Now, the calipers have been refreshed with all new hardware, pins, bleeder screws, fresh rubber boots and seals, and are finished off in that bright red powder coat to help keep these things looking good for many years to come, and as an added bonus, should look pretty sharp behind your favorite set of stock or aftermarket wheels. Now, finally, guys, the PowerStop kit has been backed by a 3-year or 36,000 mile warranty, just in case you run into any issues. Now, your price point for this kit will live in the low $1,000 range, which is certainly going to be a bit higher compared to your generic parts store replacements that you might grab down the street, but at the same time, this kit is not nearly as expensive as a lot of those aftermarket big brake kits that you see on the site from companies like Wilwood or Brembo or so on. So definitely something to keep in mind. It's positioned nicely, I would say, right in the middle compared to, again, your budget-friendly options and those baller big brake kits. Switching gears, let's talk install. And listen, guys, brake jobs, certainly one of the basics of automotive wrenching, no doubt, but since there is a good amount of work involved, basically replacing every component here on your Ram, including needing to bleed the system, the site is going to kick things up to a pretty solid 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. Call this one 3 hours to complete from start to finish, but honestly, take your time. There's a good bit of work here involved, so just make sure you do it right. But now what do you say we head out to the shop real quick? Let's check out a detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
The tools you'll need for this project are a 1/2-inch breaker bar, a 1/2-inch and 3/8 inch ratchet, a 13, a 15, and a 21 millimeter socket, a brake hose clamping tool, a 10 millimeter, possibly a 17 millimeter wrench, a pair of pliers, and a vacuum pump / brake bleeder system. Hi everyone. Today we're installing a set of brakes on our Ram, so let's get started with the uninstall of the stock system first. First thing we're going to do to uninstall the front is we're going to clamp off this brake hose here, and that's to keep all of the brake fluid from draining out of the master cylinder. Now you can rent or buy a hose clamp at your local parts store. I'm going to be using a pair of needle nose vice grips with some rubber hose on the ends. It'll work just as well. And we're just going to clamp this off right here, and then we can disconnect our brake hose from the caliper itself, and then we'll remove our caliper. Clamp off our brake hose there. Then we'll use our 15mm socket and remove the banjo bolt off of the hose. Now it's also a good idea at this point to make sure that you've got either a drain pan or some sort of absorbent material underneath this to help collect all of the brake fluid that will drip out. All right, that's out of the way now. And one of the things I also like to do, just to keep from making more of a mess, is use this plastic plug that comes with the new caliper and insert that where the banjo bolt was at. That'll help prevent any brake fluid from leaking from the caliper when we take this out. Now we're going to remove the 2 bolts here and here on the mounting bracket to the spindle. Once we get those out, we can go ahead and just lift our caliper off of the rotor. So we'll be using our 21mm socket and a 1/2-inch breaker bar to break this loose. Do the same thing for the top one. And once you've got them broken loose, you can switch to your 1/2-inch ratchet to go ahead and finish taking those out. Once you got your bolts out, you can just lift up on the rotor, on the caliper, and pull that out. Now we can go ahead and grab our rotor and pull it straight out. Being careful, of course, because there is a little bit of weight to it, and be done. Now because these are slotted and drilled rotors, they are side specific, so you want to make sure that you've got the correct rotor for the correct side of the vehicle. And since we're working on the driver's side, you need to make sure this one actually has a sticker on it that says front driver's side, so you know it's the right one. But if that sticker is not there, you can always look at the slots and the drilled holes and make sure that they're starting from the inside and it goes to the outside here, and the outside part you want to have facing the rear of the vehicle. So we know this is going in the right direction for this side, so that's good. Another way that you can tell is along the outer edge here, they've got the part number stamped in, as well as some specs as far as minimum thickness goes. And on the part number here, the very last digit, it'll be either an L or an R. L is for the driver's side, R is for the passenger side. So all of these things match up for ours, so we know we're on the right one. And then before we install this, it's always a good idea to use some brake cleaner to clean off the contact surface of the rotor on the front and the back side. Make sure that there's no manufacturing residue or nothing got on it during shipping. So let's go ahead and clean that off. And using a clean cloth, we'll go ahead and wipe it down. And then flip it over and make sure that we do the back side as well. All right, now we can go ahead and get this installed on the truck. So now we just line up our holes on the wheel studs and slide it on. Now let's go ahead and get our pads installed in the new calipers and get that installed as well. Now as you can see that these calipers come partially assembled, already attached to the mounting bracket. So you also want to make sure that you've got the right one for the correct side that you're working on. You want to make sure that once this is mounted on the vehicle, that the bleeder screw is at the top. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our 13mm socket and remove these two bolts here and move the caliper off of the mounting bracket so that we can install our new pads. Now, there is a possibility that these nuts on the back side for the slide pins are a little too tight. In that case, you can either use a very thin 17mm socket to hold the nut on the back side while you loosen the bolt, or in our case, we're going to use just a pair of pliers and hold that nut still while we break it loose. So again, just hold it, use our 13mm socket to get that bolt loose. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Once you've got it broke loose, it should just come right out. All right, once you've got the bolts out, you can just remove the caliper. Now we can go ahead and get our pads installed into our mounting bracket. Now to install our pads into our mounting bracket, we're going to attach these spring clips to the pad itself, making sure that this loop part of the clip is facing to the back side of the pad, like so. And then we can just slide that into place. Inside the mounting bracket. And we'll do the same thing for the other pad. Now, once you've got that taken care of, the kit does come with this lube. And you see it's a small package, so it doesn't require a whole lot. What you're gonna wanna do is just open this up, squeeze a little bit of the lube out onto your finger, and then apply it to the back of the pad. Making sure, of course, not to get it on the actual contact surface of the pad itself. Now, because we're not making this a permanent change to our vehicle, we're not going to bother to put on the lube, but now you know exactly what you need to do for yours. Now let's go ahead and get this put back together. So we'll slide our caliper back down over the mounting bracket, reinstall the bolts that came with it. And tighten them down with our 13mm socket. Again, you may need to hold your backing nut here while you tighten that down. And now we can go ahead and get this installed on the truck. Now to install the rotor, you want to make sure that your pads are spread as far apart as they can be. And then we'll go ahead and slip this over the rotor, get it into position, and we'll be reusing the original hardware to secure it to the spindle. All right, once you've got the bolts started, go ahead and use your 21 millimeter socket and tighten them up. Now that we've got our caliper mounted back up, we can go ahead and replace our banjo connector onto the back of the caliper. Now the kit does come with new washers for the banjo bolt. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that you remove the original washers, one on each side of the banjo fitting. And you may need to use like a flathead screwdriver to get them off if they're stuck. Or possibly even a pair of pliers. Now once you've got the washers removed, it's always a good idea to just kind of clean up the surface a little bit. Make sure that there's no contaminants in there so we get a good seal. And then do the same thing on the banjo fitting. Get it pretty well cleaned off. And then what we'll do is we'll install one of the washers on the bolt itself, insert it into the banjo fitting, and then put the other washer on the other side. And once you've got that done, go ahead and reinstall it onto the vehicle. And then tighten it down with your 15 millimeter socket. Now once you've got it tightened down, go ahead and remove your clamp. And then you can do the same process for the other side. Now since we're replacing the calipers and the pads and rotors on this kit here, we're going to need to clamp off our brake hose here to keep all of the brake fluid from draining out of it. So what I'm going to use here is a pair of needle nose vice grips with some rubber hose on the ends of it, just to keep from damaging the hose. And we'll be able to go ahead and clamp that off so that it doesn't leak all over the place. Now you will have some leakage just because you can't prevent all of it from coming out. So we're going to go ahead and clamp this off, and then we'll remove our ABS sensor wire here, and then we'll disconnect the hose from the caliper itself. So we'll go ahead and clamp this down pretty close to the end of the hose. And then we're just going to pull this sensor wire out of the clamp. And now we'll use a 15 millimeter socket right here on this banjo bolt to go ahead and disconnect our brake hose from the caliper. Now you might want to consider either putting some sort of absorbent material or a drain pan underneath it just to catch any of the fluid that does come out. So we're using our 15 millimeter socket on the banjo bolt. Go ahead and take that out. And then I like to use the cap that comes with the new caliper that goes into the banjo bolt hole on the new caliper. I'll just stick that inside the hole here, and that'll help stop the leakage as well. Now we're going to use our 18 millimeter socket on a 1/2 inch breaker bar to break loose these upper and lower caliper mounting bracket bolts. Now once you've got them broke loose, you can go ahead and switch out to your 1/2 inch ratchet to finish taking them out. Now once you've got both of the bolts out, you can just go ahead and slide your caliper straight off of your rotor. Now depending on where you live in the country and what kind of condition your brake system is in, you may need to use a hammer to tap this loose. Now, be careful not to damage the threads on the studs, and if it's not too bad, you should just be able to pull your rotor straight out. Now before we put our new rotor on, we want to make sure that we've got the correct one for the side of the vehicle that we're working on. Now since we're on the driver's side here, we want to make sure that we have the driver's side rotor. And one way you can tell, obviously, is it's got a sticker on here that says rear driver's side. But if that sticker is missing, another way that you could tell, because these are slotted and drilled, is looking at the angle of the slots and the holes that are drilled. If they start from the inside and they go towards the back of the vehicle as you're looking at it from the side, then you know you're on the right, you've got the correct rotor. Now another way that you can tell is along the edge here, it's got the part number and some specs stamped into the edge of the rim. And the very first thing here is the part number, and then the very last digit on the part number is either an L or an R. L is for driver's side, R is for passenger. So we do have the L on ours, so now we know we've got the correct one for this side of the vehicle. Now before we actually put it on the vehicle, it's highly recommended that you go ahead and clean this using some brake cleaner and a clean cloth, just to make sure that there's no manufacturing residue or if there's anything that got on it during shipping or handling, that it's clean and it's not going to cause any problems with the new pads. So we'll go ahead and spray this down and then wipe it with a clean cloth to make sure that we've got everything off of there, and then we can go ahead and put it on the vehicle. You want to make sure that you get both sides as well as the inner hub here where the parking brake goes as well. So we want to make sure we get all that clean. All right, now that we've got it cleaned off, we can go ahead and put it on the truck. So we're just going to reverse our process of removing the old one. Just line it up over the studs and slide it on. Now let's take care of our new caliper. Now because this kit does come with a new caliper and a new caliper mounting bracket, it does come partially assembled, but we need to take it apart so we can put our new pads in, and then we'll put it back together so we can put it on the truck. So to do that, we're going to need a 13mm socket and a ratchet, and remove these two bolts here so that we can take the caliper off of the bracket and get the pads installed. All right, then we'll just lift the caliper out of the way. Now we can go ahead and install the supplied spring clips to hold our pads in place. And they just snap on the ends of our caliper mounting bracket here. All right, now that we've got our spring clips installed, now we can go ahead and install our pads. Now we can install our new pads, but before we do that, the kit does come with some lube that you need to apply this before you put the pads into the caliper mounting bracket, just to make sure that things work a little bit smoother and there's less noise and restrictions when you're actually using it. Now to do this, what you're gonna do is just tear off the end of the packet a little bit and then squeeze it. You'll notice that there's not a lot in here because you don't need a whole lot. So what you'll do is just tear off the end a little bit, open it up, and then we'll put some lube in the groove here on the pads, on the ends, so that they slide nicer. And then also we'll put a little bit on the back and we'll smooth it around here. Now remember, it doesn't take a whole lot, so be very cautious when applying this, and also make sure that you don't get any of the lube on the front of the pad. Now, because we're not making this a permanent addition to our vehicle, we're actually not going to put the lube on here. So we're just gonna go ahead and install the pads. Now to start with the one end of the pad underneath the center spring here, and the other end goes into the caliper mounting bracket here. Now once you've got one end started, then just lift up on the small tab on the other end of the spring clip and slide your pad into place. Now we'll do the same thing for the other pad. You may want to raise up on the spring clip just a little bit on the end to help get it into place. And then you want to kind of have your pads spread pretty far apart to make sure that they fit over the rotor. Now let's go ahead and get this installed. Now we'll put our caliper back onto our mounting bracket. Now we'll screw our bolts back in. And tighten them back down with our 13mm socket. Now we can get our assembled caliper put back on the truck. Now we'll go ahead and slide our caliper over our rotor and secure the caliper mounting bracket using the original hardware. And now we'll tighten it down using our 21mm socket. Now the kit also comes with a couple of new washers that go around this banjo bolt here So you want to take the bolt out and then remove the old washers. Now the kit does come with some new washers that goes on either side of the banjo fitting. And you'll want to, it's highly recommended that you use those and not reuse the ones that are on there. So to take the other ones off, if they seem to be stuck on there, you can use a small flathead screwdriver. Now if the washers are stuck on there, you can use like a small flathead screwdriver to just pop them off. And you want to make sure that you get both of them on either side of the fitting. Once you've got those off, go ahead and clean the fitting just to make sure that there's no debris in there to cause any leaks. And then we'll go ahead and put one of the washers on the bolt here, slide the bolt through, put the other washer on the other side, and now we can go ahead and reattach this to our caliper. And then we'll tighten that down with our 15mm socket. Now once you've got everything tightened down on this side, go ahead and remove your clamp. And repeat that whole process for the other side. Now that we've got our brakes completely installed, now's the time to actually bleed the brake system of any air that may be trapped inside. So let's watch a short video on the process of bleeding the brakes. And remember, when you bleed the brakes, you always want to start from the caliper that is the farthest from the master cylinder, which in this case is going to be your passenger rear caliper. Once you get that one done, then we'll move on to the driver's side rear, and then to the passenger side front, and finally the driver's side front.
All right, now that our calipers are installed on the truck, we can begin the process of bleeding the brakes. The first thing we're going to do is pump the brake pedal up a little bit to fill the calipers with brake fluid, and then we're going to top off the reservoir. Top off your reservoir. And now we can begin to bleed the brakes. All right, so you're gonna want someone up in the driver's seat pumping the brakes and holding them while you do this. First, remove this rubber cap off your bleeder. Next up, using a 10mm wrench, get it in place. And you can also use a line if you'd like, just to help make the brake fluid go into the pan and not everywhere. And one more thing, we always want to start at the farthest point away from the master cylinder, so for us it's going to be the passenger side rear. All right, so have your buddy pump up the brakes. And then hold them. Crack it open. Let some fluid out. Close it, and then repeat that process until the fluid comes out clear with no bubbles and the brake pedal is nice and stiff. Repeat that process on the rest of your calipers and make sure you keep an eye on the reservoir to make sure your fluid is full. Replace the cap over top of your bleeder and replace the ABS line as well if you haven't already.
And that wraps up our review and install of the PowerStop Z23 Evolution Sport 5-lug brake rotor pad and caliper kit, front and rear, for your 09 to 18 Ram 1500. Thanks for watching, and remember, for all things Ram, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.